So, Season of the Witch narrative has concluded today, and spoilers for the conversation we are going to be having about this narrative. I gotta be honest, there is a ton of good here, and I can't really find any complaints on this season. This will be a reaction to the story, as well as how we interacted with that story. Other complaints about Destiny or other concerns we may have as a community will not be present in this video, so just a heads up before we dive into it. So first off, what the hell was the purpose of the story, and how does it move us forward closer to the final shape? Well, it does actually a ton of things here. For one, it completely strips Savathun of her power. We'll get into some of that. I think this is pretty intriguing, and a big question I had of like, how is Savathun gonna help us if she has all this power? And we actually got a good glimpse of like how she was able to maintain her power throughout the fact of her dying. And there is some obvious stuff like, hey, she didn't die to a hive god, so she never really lost her power. And the way Eris displayed that and kind of revealed that was kind of great, and great writing on the part of Bungie over here, because I didn't see any of this coming, and it was honestly pretty cool. I kind of thought that Eris was going to bite the dust in some way, somehow, and we were going to become, she was going to give us, the power because we're going to do vengeance on Xivu Arath, but everything kind of came out of left field, and they banished Xivu Arath from her ascendant plane. So, for one, it makes her killable, and two, I think we have a good idea of who we are facing in order to get inside the Traveler. Xivu Arath is pretty much going to be the gatekeeper of this portal, and whatever we need to do, wherever we find Xivu, we find this gatekeep or this key to the gate. So we definitely got ourselves in a great direction going forward of what next season is going to be about. Now, all that stuff will be subject to change when the next season rolls around, or we get more information, potentially even leaks. I don't really cover leaks, nor do I follow leaks, so things may change on this procedure, but overall, Xivu Arath is next up on the list, and we probably have to kill her before we enter the portal and experience what we experience in the final shape. Now, the presentation of the narrative this season compared to previous seasons, honestly, was much better than I was anticipating, especially with the track record we have had in the past couple seasons. Now, I think one of the best interactions we've had to a narrative is Season of the Chosen and Season of the Splicer. Both of these activities, or these seasonal activities, told a story, and it was a meaningful purpose of what we were doing to expand and continue that story, especially Chosen, with the Rite of Proving and all this different stuff. And doing Savathun Spires and Altars of Summoning really was a meaningful interaction with how the story was being told. And that's something that Bungie has been lacking a bit with previous seasons. Usually it was kind of rinse and repeat these same exact steps over and over and over. And while things got a little repetitive, of course, in Season of the Witch, I feel like the design aspects of the activities and kind of how much we had to do and the difficulty of what we had to do really did surpass what previous seasons did. I know some people may feel different, but that's just my personal experience when it comes to playing and interacting with the narrative. Now, one thing I think is pretty cool about this is Eris Morn. She had an opportunity to claim power and bring forth that dark future that the Exo Stranger has warned us about, has basically fought and beat up Ikora about recently. There's a lot of stuff that happens with Eris Morn in other futures that are dark, and she rejected all of that. And difference here, honestly, is the fact that she had something around her. She was surrounded by friends, whether it's the Drifter, us, Ikora, the Vanguard, things like that. She was given the opportunity to put forth all that power and sacrifice, and she did her job. Honestly, banishing Xivu Arath from her plane, Ascendant Plane, was not something I saw coming, and I mentioned that before, but yeah, her rejection of that power is, I think, symbolic, and with that rejection, she weakened Savathun. Now, with Savathun, I am wondering what she's going to play when it comes to power role. She does have the light technically, even though she let us keep Immaru, who's now imprisoned, and it's pretty funny, the descriptions and the hollow radio thing that, of him talking, or at least not him talking about Ikora, talking about him. All that stuff is fine and dandy. It is pretty damn cool, but we have to wonder, is she going to be in exile and she must help guide us towards beating her sister Xivu and leading us into the portal, or is she just going to be a wandering character? I don't know. I know Bungie has hinted that Savathun will play a role into telling that story for the final shape, or at least leading up to that story, and who knows what happens to her after that. But even though Eris killed her, technically, she got killed by a hive, so that's why she lost her power. Immaru did resurrect her, and she scurried off somewhere. We don't know where. Now, this is obviously to buy us time for the next season until she comes back out hiding, but I am curious. What is her role? What knowledge does she possess that we don't know? And will we get this style of Season of the Witch? Like, will season deception be a thing? Because she's still the god of lies. She's the god of deception. So, like, it makes the narrative even more intriguing than we've gotten here. And I think that's one of the best parts about Witch Queen and this season, is that we really focused in on what has worked in Destiny. We got away from those pirate themes, from those night themes, whatever these theme-based seasons have. And I'm not saying they won't return or that we haven't had an element of that this season, but I feel like the elements focused on this story and this season have really surrounded what has been strong in Destiny. So in all, I loved this season. I love this narrative. I even love that little encounter with the Leviathan killer or whatever. I think from his name. But yeah, that boss started off pretty easy. I mean, I'm not saying damage was insane. It wasn't the hardest DPS boss ever. But I do think Bungie did a decent job in creating that encounter for all players. I'm sure the experienced player like myself, or even people that are more hardcore than me, will have no problem and probably complain that it was a little bit too easy. But altogether, I think this was a solid narrative. I think this was a solid season, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think about it. Leave a comment down below your thoughts on this conclusion, on this narrative. Is it something you want to revisit in some way, in terms of like, hey, Bungie, do more of this stuff. Let's get away from the pirate theme stuff that we did in Plunder, or anything we didn't like in the past. Or hey, maybe you want some of that stuff and you weren't down with this narrative. Leave your thoughts down below. Also, guys, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to drop this video a like. Helps out the video a ton. And to stay up to date with all the content from me, whether it's Destiny 2, Call of Duty, or any other game I cover on the channel, definitely hit that subscribe button and that bell to be notified for when I do drop more content. But until then, hope you guys have a good one. Sean here, and I'm out.